Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Chop It Up Sports. We got a good one for you today. Welcoming back to the show, good friend of mine, good friend of the show. He's been on multiple times, Hunter Fullerton. Hunter, thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, it's a pleasure every time. Thanks for having me.
Unfortunately, the college football season is over now as Ohio State took down Notre Dame in the national championship game last night. Let's not waste any time. Let's get right into the teeth of this thing. What are your initial thoughts on this game? It felt like even though Notre Dame made it close towards the end there with a couple late scores, it really felt like Ohio State was in control throughout the whole game. But what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think that Ohio State picked up right where they left off. That's a team that's been, carrying the momentum since the first week of the playoffs. And they've looked like the best team in the nation since that first matchup against Tennessee. And they've carried that momentum all the way into this game. And there was just no stopping this team throughout the playoffs. So uh, Notre Dame put up a, valiant effort, but it was Buckeyes all the way, really.
I know that obviously it's the national championship. The game means a lot to both teams just because of, it's the biggest game of the season. It's the championship. There's a lot riding on the line for both of those historic programs. But do you feel like this game meant a little bit more to Ohio State? Because for me, it felt like, you have the loss to Oregon earlier in the year, and then you lose to Michigan. And after that, it felt like everyone kind of started to give up on this Buckeye squad. Everyone kind of seemed to write them off the ship. Their season's done. The locker room was going to fall apart. And that's the exact opposite of what happened. They came closer together as a squad and ended up just rolling their way through this entire playoff. So do you feel like there was more riding here for the Buckeyes than there was for Notre Dame?
Undoubtedly, Ryan Day turned this ship around after that devastating Michigan loss. Clearly, that was the turning point in the season for them. Um, Obviously, Notre Dame's a historic program, so and it's been 30 plus years since they've won a title. So I can't say that there was more riding on it for the Buckeyes. That being said, it definitely felt like a meaningful game for Ryan Day's career, as well as some of these seniors on the Buckeyes squad. Um, so I'm sure they came in motivated, for sure.
That first drive of the game, Notre Dame comes out, they chew up 10 minutes of clock, and all of a sudden you're thinking, like, this is going to be a legit close game. We're going to have a fist fight. Notre Dame comes out swinging. But do you think that they threw their best punch first? I know this is kind of a boxing analogy where sometimes we'll see the underdog come out swinging, throwing their heaviest punches first at a chance trying to, knock out the other fighter. And in this case, it kind of seemed like Notre Dame had their best possession at the very beginning of the game. They take up 10 minutes of clock, like I said, basically the entire first quarter. They score a touchdown. Riley Leonard's just running in between the tackles, a lot of smash mouth football there. But do you feel like this just kind of wore down that Notre Dame offense as the game went on?
Yeah, undoubtedly, Notre Dame's first possession was their best. Um, but I wouldn't say that necessarily it had to do with the game plan. I think Ohio State just needs some time to warm up. And if you go back and look at that first possession, Notre Dame had some timely plays. So we're looking at two fourth down conversions, multiple third down conversions. So it could have just as easy been a punt on that first possession. So I think it was just a matter of, a solid game plan. Ohio State being a little rusty, right? Trying to get things going. And then a little bit of luck as well on the Irish's side that first drive. So it was definitely their best possession, but I can't say that it was a game plan thing. Um, More of just, getting out the opening jitters for both teams.
Yeah, and I think another thing that when you look at the game and if you go back and watch that first half is Ohio State rips off three scoring drives in a row. They go up 21-7, head into the half there, but it wasn't, quick explosive plays like we saw, obviously, besides the Quinshon Judkins 70-yard run to put him inside the five. But outside of that, their drive took 6 minutes and 30 seconds, another 6 minutes, and they capped it off with another 4 minute drive, all resulting in touchdowns. And so it wasn't like they were scoring on these massive plays like we're used to this team seeing. They were taking up quality amounts of the clock, and that kind of, calmed down this Notre Dame offense. It keeps Riley Leonard on the sideline and ultimately just kind of stops the Irish from finding their rhythm, especially after that first drive. We saw that Ohio State defense show up. But late in this game, we saw Notre Dame, they make some plays to come back. They forced the fumble on Emeka Ibuka after his big run. And then after that, we see Marcus Freeman decide to kick a field goal in the fourth quarter, down two possessions. At that point, they're down 16. A field goal is really not going to do you anything here. I was really critical of this. I think that It's the national championship game. You're down two possessions. Everything is on the line for your team here. You're the underdog. You have to go for it in that situation. And for whatever reason, they decide to kick this field goal. It results in a miss, doinking off the left upright, which kind of just goes par for the course for this game for Notre Dame. But what do you think of Marcus Freeman's decision here? Because personally, I think he was pretty idiotic.
Yeah, I understand what he was thinking, getting points on the board, right? Cut it to a more reasonable two possession game with what 6 minutes left in the game, I believe.
Yeah.
Anyway, um, but yeah, I agree that mo at that moment Notre Dame had all the momentum, so I don't see why we aren't pushing the envelope and trying to get a touchdown right there and then. Um, and also not looking back at the history of Notre Dame's kicking throughout the season, they haven't been too good all year. So I was definitely surprised that they turned to their kicker at that stage of the game. Obviously, he improved throughout the postseason. That being said, I mean, track record has to take come into effect in that position of the game.
I just don't understand like what if you're Marcus Freeman, what is the like what's the positives of making that field goal? It's a 13-point game. You're giving the ball back to Ohio State, who at that point, I know your defense just forced a fumble, but they'd still been moving the ball. It wasn't like you'd been holding them to three and outs or anything like that. What do you think Marcus Freeman was thinking just in terms of kicking the field goal? Because at that point, it's still 13 points. You're down two possessions. You still need to score two touchdowns. What do you like? What are the pros of that situation in your mind? Because personally, I can't think of any.
Yeah, I guess his only thought process could have been the likelihood of first off getting that fourth down conversion. It's a fourth down and long, fourth down and goal and long, but also the having to convert two extra point conversions back to back. So he must have just thought that that field goal would have put him into a position to, get a couple stops, make two quick drives, and rather than having to go for two both those drives, they can kick the extra point and theoretically in the game up one. But yeah, I agree. I definitely would have gone for it right then and there. But that had to have been his thought process.
It's funny because, like, despite the fact that they missed that field goal and they're down two possessions with 8 minutes to go, because at that point, I mean, I was watching the game and I'm like, this is over. I mean, it's a 16-point game. Ohio State had been cruising, whether it's on the ground, through the air. I mean, it was like the U.S. military out there doing whatever they wanted. But somehow, some way, Notre Dame finds himself in a position to get the ball back down eight. It's a third and long. Ohio State had been running the ball to force Notre Dame to use their timeouts, but they decide to take a shot deep to Jeremiah Smith on 3rd and 10. I love the call from Chip Kelly. I think, the problem that we've seen with this Ohio State team is that they get away from their identity. We saw it against Michigan specifically, trying to play tough physical football. And I get wanting to prove a point against your rivals, but that's just not who they are. They are that flashy team that's going to air it out and they're going to show you their star power. And they did exactly that in a moment where they needed it most. So a lot of kudos to Ryan Day and Chip Kelly for that play calling. What do you think of the situation here of Notre Dame? They play man coverage on Jeremiah Smith, who, in my opinion, is the best receiver in college football, and it's really not even close. I know Ryan Williams had a lot of hype earlier in the year, but to me, Jeremiah Smith is clearly the best receiver in football. I think that'll be the case going into next year as well. What do you think of, defensively playing man coverage there against a guy like Jeremiah Smith? Do you agree with it? Do you would have tried to, or would you have tried to disguise a look? I mean, what do you really do in that kind of situation?
Yeah, it's interesting. Obviously, Notre Dame's been known to play man all year, so I think they just went with, what they've been doing all year. That being said, I'm surprised they didn't do some sort of blanket coverage. Obviously, it's third and long, right? So if we can tackle them, a few yards short of the sticks, that's sort of what I would have, envisioned the coverage being like, especially in that man coverage. He's shading heavily to the inside. I mean, what do you think is going on there? We got a Jeremiah Smith singled out on the far end. Obviously, we're going a 9 route up the field. So I was surprised to see him, with such an inside coverage, rather than some sort of blanket, try to keep everything in front and tackle him short of the sticks.
Yeah, and I mean, I know earlier in the week, we heard Notre Dame say we're going to play man. We're not scared of those guys. But at the end of the day, the fact that that is what comes back to bite them is really funny because we saw Oregon try to match up man coverage against Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Egbuka. Ohio State torched Oregon. Then we see them in the Cotton Bowl. We saw Texas make some adjustments. They kind of played that zone bracket coverage against Jeremiah Smith. He really wasn't able to get anything going in that game. And so for him, for them to match up man coverage in that situation, you just can't do that. I know you want to trust your defense, you want to trust your playmakers, but you cannot afford to go man coverage Jeremiah Smith one-on-one with the game on the line. And as soon as I saw Notre Dame come out in that formation, I knew exactly where the ball is going. You know it's going to Jeremiah Smith, and I think credit to the Buckeyes for getting this one. I think they deserved it. I think they were the better team. But what I want to ask you is, how do you think that this cements Ryan Day's legacy, and how do you think he coaches going forward? Because obviously, we've all talked about him being born on third base. He hasn't won the big games that Ohio State fans have expected him to win, but now he gets his national championship. He cements his legacy as a Buckeye coach. And important do you think is this for him? And then how do you see his coaching tenure going forward?
Yeah, I think this win definitely cements Ryan Day um, in Buckeye legacy, like you were saying, and definitely earned him a couple more years at the job. Probably 4 or 5 at this point, if not more, if they continue to see the same success. But definitely, I think I wouldn't guarantee that he would have been fired or moved away from after this season if he didn't, show out like he did in the playoffs. But an 0-4 record against Michigan and no titles to show for it just doesn't work in Buckeye country. So I think this win was huge for Ryan Day, and it just earned him a couple more years as the Buckeyes head coach.
Going forward, I think that, obviously Ryan Day, we're going to continue to see him in Ohio State. I think you'd be shocked to see him take any other job just because of the talent that Ohio State brings in and that program brings in. Looking forward to next year, what do you kind of expect to see from this Ohio State team? Obviously, JTT's gone, Jack Sawyer's gone. But Jeremiah Smith is going to be coming back, and I think anytime you have a weapon like that in college football, you're going to be in the hunt for a national championship. And Will Howard's going to be gone to the draft as well. How do you see this Buckeye team turning over talent? Obviously, we know they're going to pick up big time names in the portal like they always do. But how do you see this team looking next year?
I expect the Buckeyes to be back up there at the top. Obviously, he's going to have a different face at quarterback, but that's exactly what they had this year. Probably a little less experienced quarterback next year. I think they're looking at Julian saying that backup,
Yeah.
possibly starting next year. Anyway, but I think they've built a system that any quarterback can succeed in. So they're going to be good up front, like they always are. They have weapons outside, like they always do. So it's a quarterback system, and I expect them to be right up towards the top once again.
Every time you're on the pod, we usually, spend a minute or two talking about your Oregon Ducks. As much as it pains me to do that, you guys beat this team at home. You were there, storming the field, chaotic environment. Obviously, you play them in the Rose Bowl, and they, excuse my language, but they beat your ass. How do you feel as a fan? Just, you see this team, you beat them, and they get their revenge and they win the Natty. How does that feel, just from the heart?
I hate Ohio State. I hate Ohio State. If you're not for Ohio State, you better be against them. So, um, yeah, I mean, 2014, they end our run. They end our run this year. Uh, I can't stand the Buckeyes. So, yeah, I hope next year. I hope they're absolutely horrible. I hope you know, maybe we can get to meet them in the Big Ten championship next year. Uh, and absolutely dominate. I hope.
This is a way too early prediction, but me and you have both talked about our dream of trying to go to a college football game every year, following game day around, whatever it may look like. Next year, week one, Ohio State Texas rematch in Austin. It's going to be electric down there in Cowboy country. What do you expect that matchup to look like? Obviously, we mentioned Julian Sayin being the QB for the Buckeyes. Obviously, Arch is going to be in there for the Longhorns. How do you see that matchup going? Obviously, it's January, and this game's not going to be taking place till late August, early September. But way too early prediction. How do you see that one going?
Honestly, I think it can go either way. I think both these teams are going to reload and be just as good as they were this year. Um, so I guess it's just the matter of which team sort of takes that next step. Will Ohio State, remain at the top, or can Texas sort of take that next step that they've been missing in the past couple years? Anyway, I think it's a week one matchup, so anything can happen. Both teams will probably be, loaded rosters, but haven't played a lot of ball together. So I think it could go either way.
Let's switch it over to the NFL, talking some big league ball. AFC, NFC championship taking place this upcoming weekend. We got the Commanders going in to Philly to take on the Eagles. Jaden Daniels, his rookie campaign, continues to impress the world. And I just think that this is a really interesting matchup in the fact that we have Jaden Daniels going into one of, if not the most hostile environments in all the NFL in that Philadelphia crowd. We know they're outrageously crazy. Jalen Hurts, it seems like he's a little bit hurt. No pun intended on that one. Just, how do you see this game going? Because I think both teams, obviously the same division, they've seen each other twice before where they split 1-1. I favor the Eagles in this one, despite the Jalen Hurts injury. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm rooting for the Commanders. I love that storyline with Jaden Daniels. And in fact, I'd actually give, you know, probably the quarterback play edge to the Commanders. I think at this point, even though Jaden Daniels is a rookie, I think I give him the edge. That being said, Philadelphia is built to control the ball, and they have a good defense like they always do. So I think it'll be a matter of, how many possessions Jaden Daniel can get and then take advantage of. Um, and then how many possessions can Philadelphia convert on? Because they're going to hold the ball like they always do. They're going to be able to run the ball. The Commanders' defense is good, but it's not great. Um, so I think at the end of the day, there's going to be fewer possessions for both teams than they're used to. So it's going to be whoever can convert, when they need to. Those big fourth down conversions, long third downs in the red zone. I think that's what it's going to come down to.
I think the key for Philadelphia, especially on the defensive end of the ball or the defensive side of the ball, rather, is they have the athleticism on the edge to maintain Jaden Daniels. It's just about executing that. Obviously he's a good passer, he has a good arm, but he's even more dangerous when he's on the run. So you have to be able to keep him in that pocket, keep him contained in there, and allow him to beat you with his arm. And especially with guys like Jalen Carter up front and Nolan Smith, you're going to see that Eagles front seven get some pressure on him. And I think it's important that you have to hit him, and not in a dirty or negative way or anything like that. But you have to make him feel you. You have to be able to get pressure on him. You have to get that young quarterback rattled. We know it's going to be rocking in Philly. And then on the other side of the ball, I think you just have to feed the beast that is Saquon Barkley. Even when Jalen Hurts was healthy earlier in the game, and I know it was snowy and messy and everything like that, but I just don't. I'm not impressed with the arm of Jalen Hurts. Obviously, I know he can make plays because he's a mobile quarterback, but for me, Saquon is the key to victory every game. He just ran for over 200 yards in Snowmageddon. I think you're going to see him have another massive game. Even watching the Commanders against the Lions, I know obviously the Commanders stomped the Lions, but Jahmyr Gibbs had multiple 10, 15, 20-yard runs, and if Jahmyr Gibbs is getting that behind that Detroit offensive line, then I think you can expect to see a similar thing with Saquon. I like the Eagles in this one. Like I said, I think with them being at home, it just gives them an advantage. But do you feel like this is a win-win for Washington? I mean, no one really expected them to be here. And Jaden Daniels, his rookie year, for him to make a conference championship, there's only a select amount of quarterbacks that have done so. So do you feel like the pressure's more on Philly, or do you feel like it's pretty even?
Oh, I think definitely the pressure's more on Philly at this point, right? Jalen Hurts has almost gotten him all the way, but he hasn't got him over the hump. And then obviously we see a new face in Saquon Barkley. This team, is built to win. They're Super Bowl ready. Whereas the Commanders are more of a surprise this year. They have a future ahead of them with Jaden Daniels. So I think there's more pressure on the Philadelphia Eagles, like I said before. And I think, just going back to this matchup, Philadelphia's best defense against a high scoring offense like this, like the Commanders, is definitely going to be their run game, right? That's what they've been able to do against other high scoring offenses, such as the Rams, right? They put up numbers. When the Eagles are able to run the ball, those teams don't get to play offense as long as they like. And I think that's really going to be the key for the Eagles down the stretch. Can they run the ball? Which, I assume they will be able to.
Similar to your hatred for Ohio State, you're also a Cowboys fan. So this episode is really just about, rubbing it in your face that your teams suck. Does this just like feel
Yeah.
terrible as a Cowboys fan? I mean, you could argue that the talent on, Washington is, similar to Dallas. I mean, obviously Dak been inconsistent, but you have guys like CeeDee Lamb on that team. The run game obviously has been inconsistent, but you have star power on that Dallas squad. Jerry pays those guys big money. And we just really haven't seen it work out. How does this feel watching two teams in your division face off for a chance at the Super Bowl while your Dallas Cowboys are just at home?
It's horrible. I can't stand that the NFC East is taking over the NFC Championship, and the Cowboys aren't part of it. That being said, it's scary for our future as well, to be honest. Yeah, the Cowboys are sort of in uncertain waters, whereas these teams are just catching their stride. So we'll see what happens going forward. But yeah, it's definitely scary territory for the Cowboys. Uh, though I believe in Uncle Jerry. I think he's going to turn things around.
It's a bold take. I don't know that I'd say that, but love your confidence. Love your confidence. Let's switch it over to the AFC. We got another rematch here. Chiefs, Bills. We've seen each other. We've seen them play each other this year. Bills got them done in Orchard Park. I think all of America is rooting for Buffalo, me included. I cannot stand to see the Chiefs win another Super Bowl, and that is coming from a Patriots fan that had to hear the hatred of us being a dominant dynasty for 20 years, whatever it was. I like Buffalo in this one. I know they're going into Arrowhead. I just think something has to give. I think it's finally Josh Allen's time to beat Patrick Mahomes in a playoff game. They've seen each other multiple times. Allen has got him in the regular season, but Mahomes always gets him when it matters most. I I think this is the year of Josh Allen. I think, Lamar might win MVP, but Allen just proved that he is a better quarterback in the last matchup in the divisional round. I like Buffalo in this one. I know it's probably a hot take considering the fact that they're playing in Kansas City. You look like you got some interesting thoughts on this one. I'm gonna let you take the floor.
Oh, I was scoffing at your Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen comment. I'm a big Lamar fan. I think he deserves the MVP this year. That being said, this is an interesting matchup because it's sort of the script has flipped. This is a Chiefs team that, now relies heavily on their defense, has been just an average offense throughout the year. They've been timely, but they're not putting up numbers like they used to. And this is a Bills defense that is now down, but their offense is succeeding at rates that we haven't seen before from in the past years. So it's definitely an interesting matchup now that both teams sort of have to rely on the other side of the ball as compared to the past. I think it's gonna come down to what quarterback makes the most plays. Obviously, we have two future legends lining up against each other, um, and it'll be a matter if Patrick Mahomes does what he does, or if Josh Allen can make some timely, third down throws, convert in the red zone. Um, and I think these are two Goliaths going at it.
I think when you look at, the legacy of a lot of these quarterbacks, whether it's Lamar or Allen or even Burrow and some of the guys in, the AFC, obviously I know Burrow has beat Mahomes in the playoffs, but kind of similar to Michael Jordan when he was playing where, you had guys like Patrick Ewing and James Starks and Reggie Miller and all these elite players that never got championship opportunities or never got rings because of the fact that Michael Jordan was in their conference and no one was going to beat the Bulls when Michael Jordan was on their team. Mahomes has had that exact same effect. You cannot beat the Chiefs in Arrowhead when they're at home playing their high level of football in the playoffs. We just haven't really seen the team do it besides Cincinnati a couple years ago. If the Bills lose this game, I think that, the storyline for Allen and Lamar is really, kind of the same where they're elite quarterbacks. We know that they can play at a high level in the regular season. We've seen them win playoff games, but we haven't seen them win the most important playoff games. Do you think all the pressure is on Allen in this one, or do you think, there's a sense of urgency from the Chiefs of, we have to be the first team to win three in a row?
I think the pressure is absolutely on Josh Allen, right? The Bills have been right there year after year, and if they don't do it this year, the questions start to rise. What is going to get them over the hump? They keep, they're keeping right there. But I agree, Patrick Mahomes really is tarnishing a couple legends' careers right now. Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, all those guys probably would have a few more Super Bowl appearances if it wasn't for Patty Mahomes. So I think the pressure is definitely on Josh Allen. He has to take this next step. He has to the pressure. He has to take his team um, to the Super Bowl. I think they've been right there, and it's time that they open up the door.
Before we get you out of here, let's hear, we'll give our Super Bowl predictions, who we think is going to win each of the conference championship games, and then we'll even give you our Super Bowl picks as well. You're the guest. I'm going to let you go first. Who do you have this weekend? And then based off the matchup you predict, who do you think takes it?
I have to go with the Chiefs this weekend. I think they're just too timely. They convert when they need to. They've consistently done it all year. I think I got to go with the Chiefs. Then on the other side, I got the Commanders. I think that's maybe more just a hope in my heart. I can't stand the Eagles, and Jaden Daniels is exciting to watch, even though he is an NFC East quarterback. I can't deny how exciting it is to see a rookie perform like this. So I'd love to see a Chiefs Commanders matchup. In which case, I just don't see a rookie overtaking Patrick Mahomes if they meet in the championship, and it might be the first three-peat by the Chiefs. I think that's what I got to go with.
That would be hell, dude. I could not, I just do not want to live in I don't want to live in an American world where the Chiefs are back to back to back Super Bowl champs, especially as a big Brady guy growing up. You're going to start to hear that, Brady never won three in a row. Mahomes, he's won these three in a row. He has four in, what is it, 5, 6 years, whatever it is. We never saw Brady do that. It took him 20 years to win seven, and Mahomes has done, over half that in that short of amount of time, even though, they faced each other in the playoffs or in the Super Bowl and Brady waxed his ass. So, I don't really want to hear comparisons about that. But nevertheless, I'm going to rock with the Bills in the AFC Championship game. I think they're going to overpower the Chiefs in this one. I think they're going to find a way to win. I think the black magic and the refereeing finally runs out for the Chiefs. And I think Buffalo finds a way to shock them in Arrowhead. In the NFC, I like the Eagles. I know Jalen Hurts is banged up. I just think Saquon is essentially unstoppable at this point. He's hands down the best running back in the NFL, and I don't even think it's close, and that's including Derrick Henry. And then, if we see the Eagles and the Bills, match up in the playoffs, whichever team loses, honestly, both cities will be set on fire by the end of that night, win or lose, between Buffalo and Philadelphia. I just like the Bills a little bit more. I think in the Super Bowl, it really comes down to quarterback play. I know the defense isn't as great, like you mentioned, but I have the Bills taking it. I'd like to see them win a Super Bowl. I think out of these four teams, they're probably America's team. Second to that, maybe being the Commanders. And so I'm backing the Bills. I'm a big Josh Allen guy, despite the fact that he's in New England's division. And I'd like to see the Bills get a Super Bowl finally after all they've been through. So, well, that is going to do it for this episode of Chop It Up. We appreciate you guys for tuning in. Let us know in the comments, who do you want to have more on the pod? If you want to see more of Hunter, obviously we love having him on here. And Hunter, I want to thank you for your time. Best of luck watching your eyes burn this weekend over there in that NFC Championship game. And we'll have to have you on afterwards, get your thoughts on it.
All right, yeah, thanks. I'm glad you had me on, and I'm looking forward to watching these championship games.
That's going to do it for another episode of Chop It Up. Like, subscribe, do all the things. We will catch you guys later.